and welcome once again to Abbott and Costello Meet the Podcast. This is episode 45 that we are calling It's More Bad and Lewd Than Bud and Lou. I'm Jerry Shario. And as always, it's my privilege, my thrill, my pleasure to introduce the host of this fiasco that we do here, a man who is a playwright, an actor, a director, a musician, a composer, a man who is 1 in 1,000, which is sad because only recently he was 1 in 1,000,000. Here's Nick Santamaria.
Hey, hey, there's inflation.
Exactly.
And the whole affordability issue. It's a mess. And I'm afraid that I have reflected all of that. Now I'm starting off this episode feeling guilty. Thanks a lot. Of course, none of that is true. But then again, we're used to that, aren't we? Stop it. Okay, I'm going to stop it now. We are talking about a book and a movie that is based on the book.
Yep.
And I just want to say right off the top, right off the get-go, both are caca. Now,
you're using the technical terms now, are you?
Yes, I am. I tried to look up a more appropriate word, but most of them were too dirty to say. So I'm just going to say caca. It's caca.
Okay.
It's just crap. It's just pure crap. Now, what I'm talking about is, and if you're not aware of it by now, the book by Bob Thomas, published in 1977, called Bud and Lou. It's ostensibly written by Bob Thomas, but I sensed Eddie Sherman whispering in his ear the entire time. And that's why the book is such a mess and so insulting and so scurrilous and salacious and other words that start with S. It's just terrible. So anyway, we're talking about Bud and Lou. I'm going to start now because I want to tell you folks out there that I'm not going to, make a big fuss about this, but I actually reread the book in full. Now, it's only 200 pages. It took me 2 sittings. It wasn't a big, investment of time. But just to put myself through that book again was painful and sad. And I just kept thinking, boy, our fans out there, our listeners, they really owe me. You guys really owe me. You owe me big. I mean, dip down into whatever you have and send it because you owe me. I want to go back and just do a little bit of a personal history. And maybe, Jerry, you might want to come up with something, too, as far as when I was a kid. I'm just like you guys listening, you guys and gals out there. I watched Abbott and Costello every week. I saw at least one every week. What a wonderful thing to have. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with that, and there was very little to read about them at that time. Leonard Maltin wrote about them in his great book, Movie Comedy Teams, and there was a nice chapter, amongst other chapters, but it wasn't what I would call complete and very deep. It wasn't a deep dive. Then a book came out by one of the Tonight Show writers, Jim Mulholland. He wrote a very, very good and positive book. When I read this book, well, first of all, I want to tell you that it was published in 1975. I was still in my teens, and I couldn't afford it. I was at Walden Books with my cousin Linny, and Lynn had money. I didn't. So I borrowed $8 from Linny and bought the book, and I eventually paid her back. It took, 17 years. She was big on interest, and it was tough. But I bought the book and read it and ate it up with a spoon. There were movies discussed that I didn't even know existed. And Jim is responsible for that wonderful experience. And I thank you, Jim. I know you're not listening, but I thank you. But then a couple of years later, 1977, a cockamamie publishing company called Lippincott, Lippincott. Never heard of it. And it was written by Bob Thomas. Now, as far as I knew, Bob Thomas was a very, good journalist, a Hollywood journalist. He would show up on film sets and he would interview the stars, and the articles were always kind of fun. That's what he did. That's what he did best. So I thought, okay, this might be good. I recognize his name from some other bios that he had written. So I took this home. I started reading it, and the first chapter was wonderful. Abbott and Costello appearing for FDR, and being called to his table because he was such a fan. And he begged them to do Who's on First, and they did for the president. That was the Hollywood press dinner, and when you think about that, you think about George Carlin and Norm Macdonald and all these guys who did it. Abbott and Costello did it back in the 1940s. And boy, FDR laughed louder than anybody. So I just love that. And it started beautifully. Then there were acknowledgments. And I'm just going to go through some of the names here. I have the book right next to me. And actually, flies are dropping dead around it. Hold on. Let me push those off. There we go. All right. No more dead flies. The viewpoints on the lives of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Among them, Mrs. Bud Abbott, his nephew Norman Abbott, his sister Olive Abbott, Steve Allen, the producer Robert Arthur, the director Charles Barton, Milton Berle, he probably stole his, Joe Besser, Milt Bronson, Red Buttons, Candy Candido, Howard Christie, their last producer at Universal, Pat Costello, Lou's brother, Ralph Edwards, Alex Gottlieb, their first producer, Betty Abbott, which was Bud's niece, Edmund Hartman, the writer, Bob Hope, Danny Kaye, Earl Kenton, one of their best directors, Marie Costello, Lou's sister, who was married to Joe Kirk, Howard Koch, Sid Culler, the writer, who was responsible for the last thing they ever did in Vegas, Charlie Lamont, the director. In other words, the names are all familiar. They're all there. They all knew the story. How did this story get published? How the hell did this story get published? With all those people, Bud Abbott's widow was planting these horrible stories? I don't get it. Now, there's also Eddie Sherman, their manager. I'm sure he went through a hard time. They were not easy because they were the biggest stars in America. That's not easy. And I'm sure he had a major bone to pick with Lou. Now, Lou, I know, was, he was volatile. He had a temper, but he was also wonderful and charitable and kind and charming. But we don't get any of that from this book. This book is bereft of anything good about Lou Costello. Mm-hmm. Even when they mention that he was charitable, he would throw in as the second part of the sentence, and if anyone told them where this came from, they would be fired. It's like, give the guy a break. He was human. But I also have a thing I want to bring up, and I know that one thing I noticed about our listeners when I get mail from our listeners, a lot of them are Italian Americans. I think we Italian Americans are very proud of Lou Costello. Mm-hmm. Lou Costello became the biggest star in the world at one point, at a couple of points, actually. He was an amazing comic genius and totally, what's the word I'm looking for, instinctual, an improviser. Not a hard nose, I'm going to work on this gag for 10 months before I film it. No, he was an improvisational genius. And you know what? A lot of people look down on that. Well, then you should look down on Larry David. You should look down on everyone who's appeared on that show, on Curb Your Enthusiasm, or any of the other shows where they ask the stars of the show or the guests of the show to make up their own dialogue. They give them the situation and they make up their own dialogue. Abbott and Costello started that. They started that. That's how they worked. And that's how I like to work as well. So there you go. Here's a quote from Mel Brooks in the book. Ready? Bud Abbott was a genius. Lou Costello was one of the greatest comics in movies. His scare take was the best I've ever seen. Together, Bud and Lou were sublimely funny. Thank you, Mel Brooks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, he did sort of like steer us away from what the book really is. It would be nice if we would have kept that mood. But no, there were too many horrible stories about Lou Costello to tell us. Now, I don't know how many of you out there, and I'm going to ask you this now, Jerry. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many of you out there, after reading this book, were absolutely shattered. It was unbelievable. I would shake as I read it. These are two of my absolute heroes from childhood, from early childhood. And when you read, it was kind of like when I read a book about Joe DiMaggio, another Italian American that was, pointed at and made to look ridiculous. You found out about his weaknesses. All right. He was cheap. He didn't like to pay for anything because he was Joe DiMaggio, and things like that. But you know what? There was the other side of him as well, but it's not good reading. Well, he used to give to charity and he used to give presents to kids during Christmas and blah, blah, blah. Don't you have anything where he beats up a hooker? I mean, don't you have anything like that? I mean, we could publish that.
Yep.
That's what this book is. It's just one horrible story, and most of them have been disproven anyway. Please read our book, the annotated Abbott and Costello. This stuff is dealt with very gingerly and intelligently. And I want to say, especially by my buddy, Matthew Coniam, he's really jumps in and makes sense. Now, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Have you read the book?
I have not. I've not read the book, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I was not aware of its existence prior to seeing the television movie that it was based on it.
Right.
And I think I had Jim Mulholland's book prior to seeing the movie.
Right.
And they were so night and day from one another, I had no desire to go get the book and read it. And that was, 1977, 78, around there. And that attitude has not changed up to now.
No, I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. And in certain ways, I wish I had never read it. You know what I mean? Now, when the movie came out, you know what? I'm going to save this story for when we talk about the movie. Let's talk about the book. The book is only 200 pages. You're in and out, really. Now, Bob Thomas, he was a good Hollywood journalist, and he sold out. And everybody is telling me, people that knew him, people that have read all his work, told me that he did sell out towards the end. He wasn't working as a Hollywood reporter anymore, so he would collect the most money he could get for whatever projects he could get, and then he would start copying from press releases and other books and stuff like that. He made it as easy as possible on himself. Yeah. And this is the purest example of that. Now, you could picture little Eddie Sherman sitting on his shoulder, talking in his ear, like the little devil, the devil and angel you see in the cartoons, only there was no angel here. It was just Eddie Devil Sherman, Beelzebub Sherman. And I was doing some research on Eddie. He wasn't even born in America, so I'm waiting for ICE to pick him up and take him away. But no, I'm talking about ICE, the winter. It's winter.
Oh,
there's
right.
ICE. I'm not talking about political stuff. No, I wouldn't.
No.
But anyway. So he was born out of the country. He was born in Russia, and complete name changes and all that stuff. He became anglicized, and he became Eddie Sherman. I think his real name was something like Vladimir something like that. It may be longer. I'm not sure. So Eddie Sherman comes in, and he really is the person that took Abbott and Costello out of burlesque and gave them their first real breaks and actually opened up their careers for them. He was responsible. Now, they had the talent, but he had the know-how and the connections. So he did all that. Now, you got to wonder why he did this so late in the game. Both of them were dead by this time. And he was pretty much just kind of, taking a stick and poking it in their graves. It's like, why? What happened that made this man become such an idiot? I almost said asshole. I'm really gonna anger the guy the only listener of ours who's wearing a nun's habit. But anyway, here we are. Why would he do this? What happened? I think something really went down with him. I think that Lou, towards the end, they may have had like a big rift. It may have been that he didn't get the money he felt like he deserved. I know that towards the end, he wasn't very kind to Bud. So, he obviously had a bone to pick. And, like I say, Bud and Lou, they weren't the easiest people to deal with at times. And I guess he took it personally and got his revenge, It kills me when I see this book in a used book bin. I want to take it and just throw it in the toilet, and before anyone reads it. This book and the movie it's based on has ruined Abbott and Costello's reputation beyond belief. when I think about it, why don't people like them? Why do they, put them in second tier and all this? I think this book and that movie soured people, poisoned their reputation,
Mm.
and it's not deserved. And I'm here to tell you that. And I know Jerry is too.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't believe that. Okay? They were human beings. They were good and bad, like any other human beings. And you know what? I'm also a little tired about them being labeled by their differences. It's always, oh, they didn't get along. Oh, they fought all the time. Oh, they were never talking. Oh, blah. You know what? Laurel and Hardy weren't friends until they were forced to travel together.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they became friends. They had separate lives and they had arguments. In fact, there's a letter from Stan talking about one of their arguments that they had recently. And when I say recently, I mean late in the game.
Yeah.
So, everybody has their stuff. Martin and Lewis, forget it. Are you kidding? No, but Bud and Lou have that reputation. And it's this movie. I swear to you, and it's the book.
Mm-hmm.
They should all be ashamed of themselves. I told you that, a lot of the fans that listen to our podcast and that seem to post a lot about Abbott and Costello are Italian Americans. We are proud of Lou Costello.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that many Italian Americans, superstar geniuses, comic geniuses, We have Durante, we have Lou, and maybe a few others, but not many. So we hold him dear, I know it's silly, but we do. Do you, Jerry, do you think of it that way at all?
That does play a big part in it, I'm sure. Especially at that time, people's origin points, their nationalities were such a point of pride in so many ways. And
Yes.
to know that this person, this Italian American, let's use that example since we're on it, this Italian American has become so successful and is so talented, so maybe there's hope for me. There's always that attitude.
Yes,
And
yes.
honestly, other than Sinatra, Lou was probably number 2 on that list.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. As far as big stars,
Yeah.
no. I mean, there were no more successful comedy teams at the box office than Abbott
Yeah.
and Costello. So, yeah. And Lou wasn't even a full Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that? He was 3/4
No.
Italian and 1/4 Irish. And of course, Bob Thomas went right to, well, no wonder he was so volatile. I mean,
Jeez.
is that, I don't want to stereotype so much, It's like, yeah, that's why he screamed and yelled and was such a horrible person. It really rankles me.
Well, that actually describes me as well. 3/4 Italian, 1/4 Irish. And I don't think I'm volatile. And if anybody says I am, I'm going to get... No, never mind.
I have to look up volatile. Hold on. Oh, there's your picture. Look, there's your picture. Oh my goodness.
Son of a gun.
You're famous, Amos. I used to know famous Amos. I used to work at an answering service on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, and famous Amos opened his first store right across the street. He used to bring us cookies, free cookies. He was such a sweetheart. I keep forgetting that I used to know him.
Wow.
Famous Amos. Yeah, he was famous. And he was Amos. So in this book, Bud is depicted as a very docile, very fearful with his epilepsy, which I know is true.
Mm-hmm.
Very loyal to Lou because he had to be.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really, well, they do kind of mention that in the book too, but it's true. Bud had to follow along because Lou was the motor. Lou was the ambitious one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wrote down here a list of what I got from both characters in the book. Bud, a drinker, a gambler, big time, more than Lou. Very docile, epileptic, devoted to Lou and Lou's choices.
Mm-hmm.
And not always privately, but publicly.
Mm-hmm.
It was written in the book that he once said to his brother Harry, who Lou loved. Harry said to him, "Beware the Italian who gets rich." How about that?
Wow.
I find it very offensive. I don't know about you, but I find it very offensive.
Mm.
He said that behind Lou's back. Okay. Lou, now, on the other hand, is depicted, here's my list, get ready. Confident, ambitious, vengeful, petty, stupid, crass, sickly, angry, and loyal to Bud, but didn't especially think he was necessary. Right there, you've got kind of an underdog and a villain, and Lou is the villain. My friend Louis J. Stadlin, who played Groucho in Minnie's Boys,
Mm-hmm.
he once told me a joke that I know it's an old joke, but I'd never heard it before. We were talking about, he's a Jew, I'm an Italian, and we were talking about the similarities. And he said, oh, yeah, Jews and Italians are very similar, except for 1 year of high school. And it hit me right between the eyes. It hit me between the eyes because, like most jokes, it's kind of true. The Jewish people put more stock in education, which I love because I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. So I wanted to learn as much as possible. But a lot of Italians are depicted as, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Hey, you got a slice there? Yeah, there used to be a stand-up comic. I forget his name, but he was an Italian kid. He was great. And he talked about how did we go from Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance, to, hey, Louis, give me a slice. How did we go from there to that? And trust me, everybody out there, I hope I'm not offending anyone, but that's how we're seen, and have been all through modern history. You look at the old movies, we're either deadly gangsters with no conscience, or we're street cleaners, or fruit peddlers, or toilet cleaners, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we were depicted. So anyway, that joke from Louis Stadlin really hit home, and I find that all through this book, Lou is depicted that way. And I know he was a street kid. I know he wasn't especially educated. He wasn't a college boy.
Yeah.
And neither was Bud. Bud's grammar is just horrible. But the two of them were just two lunkheads in burlesque, and they became better than anyone else.
Yep.
Okay, let's see what else I have here. I've been in 4 different comedy teams in my 50-year career in show business. First, it was Stanley and Santa Maria, and I was 15. Then it was the Mark and Nick show with the insanely talented Mark McCracken, and we toured the country. And then I did 3 years on the cruise ships with a partner, Corey Marin, and he was like the good-looking singer, and I was the goofy one. And then finally, Biffle and Schuster. And if you don't know Biffle and Schuster, we were a fake comedy team from the 1930s, and we made a bunch of short subjects. Thank you. He just gave me the chef's kiss.
Oh, yes.
They are a lot of fun. If you want to see them, I play Biffle, by the way, and my dear, dear late friend, he passed away in 2022, Will Ryan. Look him up. One of the great Disney voice artists and just an all-around Renaissance man. Just wonderful. Mm-hmm. So anyway, go to Kino Lorber. It's The Misadventures of Biffle and Schuster, or on Amazon Prime. You can stream it, and it's known there as The Adventures of Biffle and Schuster. Anyway, that's just a plug, a shameless plug. But just to tell you that I've been in 4 comedy teams. It's the hardest thing to do in show business. I'm going to say that. I'm sorry. It's you're together constantly. Sometimes you have to share rooms, and you get paid the same salary that a single gets, and you have to split it. So it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And people are talking like, oh, they couldn't get along, and blah, 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 blah. And, Martin and Lewis, they argued. And blah, blah. Of course they argued. They were together all the time. Oh, my God. You know what? Rowan and Martin didn't like each other at all. But for 10 years before they made it, they traveled together, they roomed together, they hung out together because they had to, and they made it work. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear that. But no, Abbott and Costello, never mind the great routines and the movies and the television show and all that stuff. They fought. Okay. So that's that. The book is a piece of crap. It's trash. And then Chris's book, Chris Costello, came out a few years later to clean up the trash. And I don't blame her at all. She wrote Lose On First.
Yes.
But it was, if Bob Thomas's book was one end of the spectrum, the lower end of the spectrum, Chris's may have been a little too far to the other side. And no offense to anyone, and especially to Chris, because I really loved your book. But if I were writing about my father, believe me, I'd do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'd want him to look in the nicest light as possible. I find that with the 8,273 movie star biographies that I've read in my lifetime, I find that, and autobiographies as well, I find that the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. I don't believe Lou was a saint at all. I believe that he had his temper. I believe that he stood up for himself, and it was often looked at as aggression and being unreasonable, when in fact the executives were being just as unreasonable. And even Bud, it's like they were human beings. They had good and bad. They had nice and not so nice, whatever. It's just time to grow up and look at them as the business partners that they were. Maybe they started out as friends and started drifting later on. It happens, I have friends that I haven't seen in 30 years, and we were so close. You know what I mean? But you drift, right, Jer? You drift.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, okay, here's what I feel about what he did. I feel that Lou is more of a lovable, fatherly fellow. He loved his family. He loved his children. He loved his wife. And unfortunately, when Butch died, that kind of went sour. Lou gets a bad rep, but listen to this. Not only was he hit with a deadly disease after giving everything to Uncle Sam, he had to sit tight, for almost a year until he got better. He had his son, which is what he wanted more than anything in the world. And he lost his son. Then the IRS came after them, took everything he owned. I mean, here's a guy who had some bones to pick. Here's a guy who you would look at him and think, after all of that stuff, of course he's not, St. Francis of Assisi. He's a human being. And he took some real punches. It was difficult. And that's the understatement of the decade. And poor Bud, too. Bud finally got to a place where, boy, I could be comfortable. Knock, knock, knock. IRS man. Oh, I'm sorry I gave. But anyway, so the poor guys really got hit. They really got hit. And especially after what they did for Uncle Sam during the war. It just goes along with how I feel about the government anyway. Okay, so we forget that Lou loved to give to charities. He didn't want to be mentioned. When Christmas came around, he made notes about who could use a meal on Christmas and would put together baskets, and he would send people out to leave them on their doorsteps without his name being mentioned. True charity. True charity. Okay, so Eddie Sherman, he had that bone to pick. He managed them for years and was mostly responsible for their careers. I think he felt that he wasn't compensated enough. He wanted his pound of flesh, and knowing that the more salacious the book, the better chance for a movie deal. And if you watch the movie, which we're going to start talking about now, you see that he was the creative consultant. Oy. There's your answer, folks.
Yep.
That's why the movie was so horrible. Now, I'm going to tell my story about how I came upon the movie and all that stuff, because it's kind of funny. But do you have a remembrance of watching this movie for the first time, Jared?
Oh, yes. When it was first broadcast, I remember seeing the advertisements for it. And obviously, Abbott and Costello, boom, caught my attention right there. Right. Buddy Hackett. I've always enjoyed Buddy Hackett. Harvey Korman, my gosh, the Carol Burnett show staple, especially at that time. Why not? And also, I will have to admit, Michelle Lee was a very strong influence in me wanting to see that movie as well.
Yabba dabba doo.
Yeah. And so, I vividly recall waiting for it to be televised. I watched it when it was first televised, and then promptly just forgot about it completely because it wasn't worth the time to, store in my memory. Just the attitude that it created. And anytime you see a movie like that about famous people, hey, this is what they were really like, there's always a part of you that says, gosh, I wonder how true that is. And another part that says, wow, I never knew they were like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough previous knowledge to say, no, they weren't like that. No, that's not. No. Yeah. And so flush. And honestly, had not watched the movie again until this past week. Preparation for this.
Oh boy. Well, we're going to be talking about the movie now, so I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it. Because I'm going to be going through it. I made notes, of course, and we're going to look at some of the bios of some of the people who were involved. Not that they deserve it, but I am going to do it. I will say one thing about Michelle Lee. They really couldn't have cast a better person, because Ann Costello was just like her. She was kind of tall, beautiful, just beautiful, raven-haired ex-burlesque dancer,
Yeah.
So she was very beautiful. And boy, was she devoted to Lou. She loved that man, loved him. Oh, this is a tragedy. It's more of a tragedy than anything else.
Yeah.
So it was made in, let's see, Bad and Lewd was made in 1977. I had already graduated high school and was in my first year of college doing a show. That's the only reason I got into college, was to do shows. And I was doing a production of Lion in Winter. I was playing King Henry II. Yeah, it was really a great experience. And my mom still talks about it. I was a baby, and she still talks. I was so impressed. I didn't even know it was you for the first half hour. And that was just after I was born. But no. So I was in a show, and I heard about this movie, and I was like Jerry. I was like, my radar went up. My Abbott and Costello radar went up. You have to understand, they were heroes of mine, and I had to see this movie. But, and Jerry, you're going to really appreciate this, it was being broadcast on the night of our dress rehearsal.
Oh!
I'll let that sink in. Now, in the theater, dress rehearsal is like church on Christmas. It's like your bar mitzvah. You show up. You can't miss it.
Yep.
And I created such a stink. You would have thought I was Lou Costello in this movie. I begged. I was on my knees begging the director, please, I know the show like the back of my hand. Please let me go. Let me watch this movie. She would not budge. And I had to go. But what did little Nicky do? I brought along a little television. I hooked it up backstage. And every time I walked off stage, which wasn't often because it's the lead in the show, I would look at where they were at the time, and I just couldn't get a feel for it at all. So I missed the movie when it was first broadcast and had to wait for the rerun that summer. I was so upset. But then I saw the movie, and my whole world crumbled. It was like the floor caved in. It was like, what the hell?
Yep.
Okay, let's start with this. So it was produced by Bob Banner Associates, a very, big made-for-television guy. Didn't spend a lot of money, that's for sure. It really looks like crap, Yep. It's like when they were doing their radio shows, there's no orchestra behind them. It's just a curtain, with the microphone. And the audience looks like they just pulled them off the street and said, yeah, you want to be in a movie? The laughter, you can barely hear it, which just accentuates all the bad routines they do, or they do them badly. They do good routines badly. Okay. No, it was written by George Lefferts, and he should be ashamed of himself. And like I say, Eddie Sherman was the creative consultant. Oh, God. So nobody had a chance. Yeah. Buddy is 54 years old at this point. He's fatter than Lou. He looks like a walking mattress. He's got that voice so he talks out of the side of his mouth. He actually had Bell's palsy as a child. And after it healed, that's what was left over. And you know what? It was good for him, It was kind of a trademark,
Yeah.
So anyway, the first scene is 1936. And Lou at that time was 30 years old. So, Buddy was only 24 years older than he was supposed to be. And Korman, Harvey Korman, he sounds like the poster boy for the Midwest. He's a Chicago boy, and that's what he sounds. Now he's got that flat accent that totally kills it for me. Why not put on a little gruff voice, a little character work? He's one of the great character men of sketch comedy, And yet he did nothing to convince me that he was Bud Abbott in this movie. But he was no better. Okay, let's just go over real quick about these guys. Let's start with Harvey, since he was billed first. Harvey Herschel Korman was born in 1927 in Chicago. Oh, what a shock. Best remembered for initially the Danny Kaye show, where he pretty much did what he did on the Carol Burnett show, only he didn't laugh as much. He was a regular for a very short time on the Lucy show, which was the second Lucy television show. He had his own sitcom in 1978. It was called The Harvey Korman Show, go figure. And he did some stuff on the Tim Conway Show, 1980. He appeared on Mama's Family a few times in the 80s. Mel Brooks loved him and used him in Blazing Saddles, High Anxiety, History of the World, Part 1, Dracula Dead and Loving It, and Dracula was the only one who did love it. And his other films, Herbie Goes Bananas. And he did two Pink Panther movies, later ones, Trail of the Pink Panther and Curse of the Pink Panther. And I believe Peter Sellers was dead. And they were just using old footage at that point. But anyway, he also played the great Gazoo on the Flintstones. Hello, dum-dums. I love no dummies. He was so good in that. Did a lot of voice work. He's Russian-Jewish descent, the son of Ellen and Cyril Korman. Served in the Navy during World War II. Studied at the Goodman School of Drama and the Art Institute of Chicago, which is now DePaul University. And also in New York at HB Studios, which is a very, very highly rated. I almost went there, in fact, and I decided not to because I was scared. So anyway, he did all this stuff, but he's mostly known for the Carol Burnett show, where he did wonderful sketches with Tim Conway. And let's face it, I only watched to watch him crack up. I hate to say it, but I am a friend of his son, Christopher Korman. And Chris tells me that his dad hated the fact that that's what he was known for, that the cracking up. He just felt it was so unprofessional and he was sorry he did it and all this stuff. And I was sorry to hear that because, God, it's so much fun. But as far as this movie is concerned, I have to say that both sons of the stars, including Buddy Hackett's son, Sandy, who I also know, they both thought they were Emmy-winning performances and that they were wonderful and this and that. And I guess you'd have to expect that. And I don't think I told either one of them how I really feel. So if you're listening, guys, I'm really sorry. You're both really nice guys, but sorry. I'm a little embarrassed and a little ashamed of both of your fathers for doing this, for even doing it, reading the script and saying, yeah, I want to do that. Please. He was married twice. For 17 years to Donna Ehlert, and that's where Christopher comes from, and his sister Maria. And then he married Deborah Korman, whose real last name was Fritz. Deborah Fritz. I see nothing. In 1982, and they stayed married until he passed away in 2008. That's Harvey. Now, how about Buddy? What's going on with Mr. Hackett? Buddy Hackett, born Leonard Hacker. I believe he was born in Brooklyn, like all great comedians. And I say that every week. Guess where I'm from. Anyway, well, he was one of two children of a Jewish family in Brooklyn. His father worked in the garment district, and he was a furniture upholsterer and a part-time inventor. That's kind of cool. He worked as a tumler in the mountains, like a lot of young Jewish comedians did. And a tumler really was a tumult maker. He would jump into the pool fully dressed. or he'd, be walking with a suitcase and it would open and everything would tumble out and he'd trip over the suitcase. He would make the people laugh while they were sitting around, basically, or at dinner or whatever. So, he got a lot of comedy skills doing that. He appeared at the Golden Hotel in Hurleyville, New York. He didn't get one single laugh. That was his debut as a stand-up comic. Not one laugh. He graduated from high school in 1942, enlisted in the Army, served for 3 years as an anti-aircraft battery gunner. After the war, he worked clubs doing his stand-up act. He was on Broadway in a show called Lunatics and Lovers, and that's where producer Max Liebman saw him and put him in 2 television specials. Max Liebman was the producer of Your Show of Shows and actually put Sid Caesar on the map. In 1950, Buddy made a 10-minute short at Columbia Studios called The World of Sports, and he was a bowler. It was funny, he would fall down and do all this stuff. Anyway, apparently, this is the legend. This has not been proven to be true, but I'm just going to say it anyway. They say that because he made that short subject at Columbia Pictures, Jules White, the producer of the Three Stooges shorts and all the short subjects, he actually, in 1952, wanted Buddy to replace Shemp, who was temporarily replacing Curly, who happened to die that year. And he knew that Shemp didn't want to continue as a stooge, so he asked Buddy to be the third stooge. And think about it. I have a feeling it would have worked.
Yeah,
he was the right shape. He was a little goofy, goofier than the others. So I don't know. He said that he even joined them for a rehearsal and then realized it wasn't for him. And he said no. He told Johnny Carson it was true. But I'm not sure. We'll see. They also say that Mantan Moreland was considered, but he wasn't. That was just not being done during those days, unfortunately. But his big routine was the Chinese waiter routine, which you couldn't do today. It's a routine that once you hear it an hour later, you wanted to hear it again. But he started making movies at Universal, and his first was Walking My Baby Back Home with Donald O'Connor and Janet Leigh. But then he replaced Lou Costello in Fireman Save My Child, featuring Hugh, what's his name?
O'Brien.
Hugh O'Brien, thank you. Hugh O'Brien in the Abbott role. And I think I explained this, that that was set to be Abbott and Costello's next movie. So they shot the scenes with all the doubles first, from a far angle. And Lou got sick and couldn't do it. And I'm sure he was happy that he couldn't do it. This is a terrible movie. So they hired 2 people that looked like the doubles of Abbott and Costello. And that was Buddy Hackett and Hugh O'Brien. Watch it for Spike Jonze and then turn it off. That's all you need to do. But anyway, Buddy started making more movies. He did Marcellus in The Music Man, which I thought he was very good in that. And I especially love him in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, where he's teamed with Mickey Rooney. They make a great, great team.
Yes. They should have done more. And now you're about to say.
This was the last one they did together. They did Everything's Ducky. I believe that was about a talking duck. But anyway, they might have made one more before that, but I'm not sure. I'm not getting paid enough to look. So he appears on all the game shows, and I grew up with him on the Merv Griffin show and on the Carson show. But in 1956, 1957, Max Liebman hired him to star in his own sitcom, and it was called Stanley. It lasted that one season, and his girlfriend was played by a very young Carol Burnett. But anyway, that was a high-profile thing for him. He appeared on a lot of television shows, a lot of Hollywood squares. My second favorite appearance in a movie for Buddy Hackett was The Love Bug, where he's the sidekick to Dean Jones, and it's just. And they're up against Joe Flynn and David Tomlinson, and they're great as the 2 bad guys. In 1964, and Michelle Lee, right? Of course. Boy, this was sort of a together again for the very last time. He did a Broadway show with Richard Kiley called I Had a Ball. And he just worked and worked and worked and worked. Murder, She Wrote, and all the old star shows. And I believe on YouTube right now, there is a full 1 hour show that he did. I believe it's from either Reno or Vegas, but it's on YouTube if you want to see his act.
Oh.
Unfortunately, he ends with a song. And he can't sing, for one thing, but he wrote it for his daughter's wedding or something like that. And it is so bad. I just, everything that went before just soured, It was like, don't sing. Please don't
Mm.
sing. It's like when Don Rickles used to do his tribute to James Cagney and Georgia Cohan in the middle of his act. It was pathetic. It was like, what are you doing? Nobody even knows what you're doing anymore. Uh, anyway, crazy. So yeah, he died in 2003 at the age of 78. He was suffering from diabetes. He had a couple of strokes like a week before he died,
Mm.
and that was that for Buddy Hackett. His son Sandy, and when I mentioned the movie Bud and Lou, he should have won an Emmy. He was fantastic. And I had to sit there. I was in their home, like eating their food. All I did was sort of nod my head and just not put myself in too bad a place, because of it. Thank God his wife was there, and she's a person who did nothing but talk about her dead father. If you can believe it or not. I mean, I was there for 2 hours. That's all she talked about.
Wow.
And apparently he was a songwriter or something. He wrote some stuff for Motown and things like that. That's all she talked about. And boy, it was boring. Anyway, we're getting back to the movie now. That was our two leads. And actually, the first person we see in the movie is Michelle Lee,
Mm-hmm.
walking down a 1936 backlot, studio backlot. And like I said before, I think she was a very good choice for this movie. I'm just sorry she didn't have better material to deal with. She was born in 1942, and luckily she's still with us. I was at a restaurant in Westwood, California in the early 80s, and I'm eating, and I look up, and Michelle Lee walks in. Now, of course, just like every other heterosexual young boy, we had a crush on Michelle Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked in, and she was so skinny that I didn't have a crush on Michelle Lee anymore. I mean, I looked at her and I thought, does she think she looks good? She didn't. She needed a sandwich. And they say that the camera puts 10 pounds on you. So that's probably why she looks so great on camera while looking, anorexic in person. But anyway, she seemed very nice. I was too nervous to say hello. Anyway, she began her career on Broadway in a play called Vintage 60. And that was, guess, 1960. She had her big break in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying in 1962, where she plays Rosemary. I love that show. I actually got cast in the lead, and I didn't accept it yet until I saw who my leading lady was, and they thought they would be progressive, and they hired someone who was half my height and about 5 feet wide. And I said, really? At the time, I was 6 foot tall, 170 pounds, and nice looking. I'm sorry, but I was.
Yeah.
And I'm not anymore, but I was. And I had to look at this, and it was a horrible thought. I thought of people laughing, when they saw us standing together, I know it's horrible and it's probably misogynistic, but I had to say no. Anyway, that's what I think of when I think of that play. So she made her movie debut in that film version, and that was in 1967. She also appeared in The Love Bug. She appeared in one of my favorite movies, and it's my favorite Dick Van Dyke movie, The Comic, in 1969. Yes. Directed and written by Carl Reiner.
Yes.
She was in a more recent comedy called Along Came Polly in 2004. Nominated for a Tony Award in a musical for Seesaw. Also in Tale of the Allergist's Wife. She was also nominated. Title role in the Jacqueline Suzanne story. And she also played in the Broadway musical Wicked at, part-time, part of the time. She was on the Tim Conway Show with Harvey Korman. So they also knew each other. And her real name, Michelle Lee Dusick, Dusick. Again, born in 1942 in Los Angeles. She is the daughter of Sylvia and Jack Dusick, who was a makeup artist. And I think that's about it. She was married to James Farentino for 17 years. Wow. long time. She's still married to Fred Rappaport, the man she married in 1987. And she's still around and she looks great. And she's really good in this movie. I really think that she gives the best performance in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Most people might say, no, Artie Johnson. I'm sorry. I love Artie Johnson. I think Artie Johnson is such a talented, hilarious comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the gas shortage in the late 70s?
Oh, yeah.
I was online in 1979, I think it was. I was at a gas station in Los Angeles where it was worse than any other place in the country. And I waited 2 hours usually to fill up my tank. And it was on alternate days. And right behind me was Artie Johnson. So I got to tell him what I thought of him and how wonderful he is. And it was just great. And, 2 hours. What the hell? Yeah. What a guy. What a great guy. But he plays Eddie Sherman in this. And it's a shame he had to lower himself to do that. We'll get to him in a minute as we get to him. All right. So like I told you, Hackett looks like a king-size mattress in this movie. He's fat. Lou was fat, but he didn't come off as like disgusting. You know what I mean? No. Even Oliver Hardy at times, I just couldn't, it was hard to look at, But with Lou, he always looked like an athlete that got out of shape. You know what I mean? But with Buddy Hackett, he's 54 years old and he's fat and he waddles. Lou was graceful. He was light on his feet. Forget it. Hackett is like he's like a juggernaut, heading down the street. Just get out of his way. Now, the movie opens with Lou and his partner, whoever this is, dressed like idiots, dressed like clowns. Maybe the comedian did wear an oversized coat or a too small coat and maybe a small hat or whatever, but they look like two circus clowns and it just doesn't ring true. Then they get up and apparently Lou Costello was a Dutch comic in 1936. In 1929, he joined burlesque for the first time because they needed a Dutch comic. I'm sure that dropped maybe a month later. But in this movie, he's still a Dutch comic. He's doing the accent. Oh, yeah, wow. All the stupid jokes. And it's just so lame. So lame. I have here the routines are horrible. I know it's supposed to be bad at that stage, but he was not an amateur. He was one of the most sought after comedians in burlesque. And they're treating him here like he was a moron who just walked off the street and has all the confidence in the world, If he was like this, Abbott would have never teamed with him. Because it's shooting yourself in the foot. He's horrible. He's depicted as horrible. So apparently he meets Bud for the first time in 1936 backstage. They've never met before. Oh, yes, they did. Many times. And what is this relationship that Michelle Lee or Ann Costello has with Bud? Yes. It's like they're best friends, He's the father confessor. I just don't get it. I don't get it. A bad way to get exposition out there. But I'll tell you the truth, it was better than that stupid announcer. Well, it looks like Bud and Lou are making 28 films and going to radio and then to the TV. And it's like they couldn't have been treated more horribly in this movie, I'm telling you. Michelle Lee is Ann Costello, and she's going to visit Lou backstage. Apparently, they had recently gotten married, which happened a year or so before this actually happened. And I just don't understand why she and Bud were such good friends. I'm sure they met, in burlesque. She was a dancer. Bud was the most sought after straight man in burlesque. So of course, she knew him and of him. And Lou even says in this scene that I've heard of you, but I've never met you. And that's just such bull. So anyway, she's the one who actually in the movie says, come on, let's get together. Now, one of the biggest things in the movie, one of the biggest faults of the film is that apparently Bud Abbott didn't have a private life. Apparently he didn't have a wife. I mean, they mentioned her a couple of times. They mentioned her begrudgingly a couple of times. He didn't adopt 2 children. In fact, Lou didn't have daughters. He just had Butch. You know why? Because Butch was the only one who had a sensational story, who had a horrible, tragic story behind him. So that's
Yep.
the only one they talked about. That
Yep.
gives you every indication of what kind of crap this movie is. So I'm looking, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie because it's so horrible. I got to tell you, they make Lou out to be not just crass and low class, but he's an idiot. He's not just aggressive, but he's an idiot. He's stupid. That's not Lou Costello. I'm sorry. You don't get to be where Lou Costello got to be when you're an idiot. Okay, I'm really angry about this, aren't I? Hey, folks, are you getting this? Are you getting this anger? I hope you're feeling the same way. Now, here's the part. They're in the restaurant and they're solidifying their partnership. Mm-hmm. And of course, Lou says Costello and Abbott. That gives you an indication of what's to come, right? And then he says, "Boy, cocky little guy, aren't you?" And Lou, in close-up, buddy, with lighting that makes him look like a mafia don, says, "Abbott, don't ever call me little again." And that's how he says it. Okay, so Lou didn't like being called little. Of course, he's called that in every single movie, every single TV show, every single radio show. My fat little sugar man. Where's the little fat guy? I mean, constantly. Yep. So this is a tip-off. This is bad writing. This is a tip-off that Lou has a Napoleon complex. He doesn't like being short. Lou was the most confident person on the planet. Give me a friggin' break. All right. And then he, again, the top billing thing. It's just, come on. Ugh. I wrote here, he's mentally challenged in this movie. They do mutter fodder on stage, and it's like two mentally challenged people looking at it for the very first time. There's no timing. There's no nuance. There's no frustration. It's just reading lines. And what did Abbott and Costello do better than anybody? Crosstalk routines. Mm-hmm. With their great timing. So right away, they negate the entire subject of this movie. I just don't get it. Korman doesn't even try for a character, and they're quoting right from the book. This scene is written out in the book. In fact, all of the scenes they do in this movie were written out in the book. And they're all from other times. When they do Who's on First, they're doing a version that they did later from Cooperstown. And Cooperstown, supposedly this was 1940. Oh, no, wait, what was it? 1939, they're saying in the movie. They do Who's on First for the first time on the Kate Smith show. And they mentioned the Cooperstown team. Cooperstown didn't open until the following year. Okay, that's all wrong. Anytime they do a routine, they're reading from cue cards, and it's just awful.
Yes. Oh, my gosh, yes. It is.
Tell me, Jerry.
Between that and the fact that Buddy Hackett is using the little boy voice.
Right, terribly, by the way.
That did not come into use until they were on the radio. Mm-hmm. In that first burlesque scene, the mutter fodder scene, he's using that voice. It's like, no.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
It's just so bad. I'm sorry, but it is.
We've seen a lot of people do Who's on First or other routines, and we know that nobody does justice. Nobody.
Yep.
It's Abbott and Costello. So they take what Abbott and Costello own more than anyone else in the business, and they blow it. They ruin it. So, right away, this is just a piece of crap. Okay, so I have here the epilepsy scene. Bud gets an attack. Lou doesn't know what to do. Now, you know what? They think we're idiots. They just think we're idiots. Bud, of course he told him about the epilepsy. Of course he told him how to punch him, if something should go wrong. It was like, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Nobody left Bud because he was an epileptic. They just didn't find the right partners until the right one came along. That's how it was in burlesque. Right. Lou had 3 different partners before Abbott. One of them was Abbott's cousin, Al Golden. So he didn't know Abbott. He's working with his cousin. So there's that. Then there's the scene where Bud describes what is going on with him in the dressing room with Lou. Mm-hmm. And right away, I'm thinking to myself, and I know I'm fooling myself, this might be good. this could be good. They're showing a nice side of Lou. You know, he's a Jersey boy, so it's tough love with Lou.
Yeah.
And even Harvey Korman's performance here, I found very touching. You know, when he talked about it, and when Lou says, you know, gives him the drink, and says, "It's okay, buddy, don't worry about it." And then Lou says, and this is where they blow it. Lou says, "All right, let's get changed." And Bud says, "Lou, never change." Now, that is also a harbinger of things to come, because in this movie, Lou changes. He changes like Lon Chaney changes when there's a full moon. It's ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, real quickly, Henry Brandon, who played, you know, Barnaby in Babes in Toyland / March of the Wooden Soldiers and a million other roles. He's in this. I had no idea. You could hardly tell it's him. He plays Bernie, the stagehand, backstage. He has some dialogue with them. Yeah. If you look closely, you see. Yeah, so they do things like that, you know. Don't ever change, Lou, knowing full well what's coming. Okay, then we meet Eddie Sherman, who sees them in burlesque, sees their possibilities, sees the dollar signs, and approaches them with a deal. Now, here they make Bud out to be Mr. Negative. It's almost as if somebody whispered in George Lefferts' ear, the writer, you know, Bud initially didn't want to leave burlesque. He felt safe there. So he took it and he like expanded it. He turned it into a whole thing with Bud. Bud was against everything. Oh boy, maybe we'll get hit by a car. That would be the best thing that could happen to us. I mean, you know, and Lou was, of course, we've got to do it. I want to be in the movies. And this is where we first see the Lou that they're painting for us, the horrible Lou. When Eddie Sherman comes to them with this deal, they're going to be making less money. Instead of the supposedly $500 a week they were splitting in burlesque, he was offering them $150 that they had to split to play the Steel Pier in Atlantic City, which was a great place to be seen. You were there with a lot of big stars. Unfortunately, they were hired to do a minstrel show, so they were blacked up, and you really couldn't tell who they were anyway. But they made an impression doing their routines in front of the whole group. But anyway, what happened was Bud had been in burlesque for maybe 20 years at this point. He felt very comfortable. He had a great reputation. They were making good money for burlesque, and he was frightened. He was frightened about turning his back on it. I would be too. You know, this is all I know. Lou, on the other hand, had been working for a purpose, like a lot of stand-ups do. They want a TV show, you know what I mean, based on their stand-up. Lou, since he was a little child watching Charlie Chaplin on the big screen, wanted to be a movie star more than anything else in the world. And Bud right now was standing in the way. In this movie, Lou says to Eddie Sherman, "Tell me, would they take just Lou Costello without Abbott?" And everybody freezes. And Bud looks like he killed his mother. And Eddie Sherman's like, "Are you kidding? Really? Oh, no. Wow." And he says, "I mean it, Eddie," sounding again like mafia. And then Bud, of course, has to bend. "Oh, well, okay, we'll do it. But," and here's the deal he makes, "I'm going to get 60, you're going to get 40. So Lou had to give up, $10 of his salary. And this was a big issue later on. Lou never forgets, just like all Italians. They never forget, and they get revenge. So Artie Johnson. Artie Johnson, born in 1929 in Benton Harbor, Michigan. He was the son of Abraham Lincoln. Really, I'm serious. Abraham Lincoln Johnson and Edith Mackenzie Johnson. Wow. His father was an attorney. Artie went to college, got his bachelor's degree in radio journalism at the University of Illinois. And he worked on the campus radio station. And I'm sure that's where he got a lot of his voices and characters and all that stuff. He was another one who went to the Army for the Korean War. And he was discharged very early because of a ulcer condition he had since childhood. When he was released, he went to Chicago, tried to get work at advertising agencies, went to work for the Viking Press, a great publishing company, by the way. I believe it's still in business. Then he performed in 1954 in a lot of nightclubs doing an act. The Village Vanguard, which is one of the biggest places, La Ruban Bleue, which is another one. First job in show business really came when he stepped into an audition, like impulsively, for Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, the Broadway show. And he got it. And then he appeared in the Shoestring Revue off Broadway in 1955. And then he started doing television. He started getting roles in Make Room for Daddy, memorably in Jack Benny program. He played a cameraman who was trying to tell Jack Benny how to tell jokes. And he did a lot of television. Twilight Zone, in fact, too, the episode The Whole Truth in 1961. His big break, of course, was Laugh-In. And that was 1969. And he was famous for his characters. The German soldier, which had a name, by the way. Wolfgang was his name. Very interesting, but stupid. And he would say hello to Lucy and Gary, who I think were following them on the other. No, they were on the same time on CBS, on the other network. So he'd say, very interesting, and hello to Lucy and Gary. But anyway, so they were in competition and he was giving it to him. He also did the character of Tyrone F. Horneye. It's spelled Horneigh. So it's really horny, but it's pronounced Horneye. Tyrone. And he was the guy who talked down like this, do you believe in the hereafter? Yes. Well, then you know what I'm hereafter. And then Ruth Buzzy, the hilarious Ruth Buzzy, would beat him to death with her purse. And he'd fall off the bench. We loved him, and he was just great. My favorite character, though, was his Polish character. I forget his name, but he wore this corny suit from like the 1940s, and he wore two-tone shoes, and his hair was parted in the middle. He wore glasses, and he talked in this terrible accent. It was just hilarious. He may have been my favorite person on Laugh-In, and there were a lot to choose from. Anyway, both he and his brother, Kozlo, his brother's name is Kozlo. Wow. Kozlo Horneye. He was a writer on the show, and they both won Emmys while working on that show. So then he got out and he started doing television shows. He started showing up on The Gong Show, did a lot of voices for animated shows. And his latest things, the Justice League Unlimited, the voice of Vermin Wunderbar, which was his German accent guy. And he retired in 2006. He was married to his wife, Gisela. They had 4 children. He had a wife before this, Texie Waterman. He had a life full of people with interesting names, I have to say. He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He survived it and lived for a while it was in remission. And unfortunately, his bladder and prostate both were cancerous, and he died in 2019. He was 90 years old. Not bad for a short guy. Yeah. He lived long for a short guy. Oh, boy. So, that was Arte Johnson. Now, what I loved about Arte Johnson in this movie, he's Eddie Sherman, and he's telling the boys what he's going to do with them. He's got it all mapped out as if he read the book first. I'm going to put you on radio. We're going to do the Kate Smith show. Then you're going to do a Broadway show. Then you're going to have movies. And, he knew and then television. He knew everything that was going to happen. I'm sure that Eddie Sherman added that to the mix. And then there's another one of those Lou Mafia moments where after Bud says, I'm going to take 60, you're going to take 40, because I'm going to teach you a lesson I want you to remember. And another close-up of Lou with bad lighting. And he says, don't worry, Abbott. I won't forget. Bum, bum, bum. And folks, he does not forget.
No.
Oh, boy. So there it is. I mean, Lou is set up to be this, film noir villain of the piece, and it's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Okay, the scene in the kitchen with Lou and Anne, and they're listening to Ed Wynn on the radio show. Graham, it's going to be different tonight. And, they're listening and whatever. She turns it off, and he starts saying, boy, Ed Wynn, he's a funny guy. And Ann would say, yeah, you're funnier. And really, am I funnier than Fred Allen? Yeah, you're funnier than Fred Allen. Jack Benny? Yeah, I'd say you're funnier than Jack Benny. Chaplin? Pause. No, you're not funnier than Chaplin. I don't think anyone's funnier than Chaplin. And he stops for a second and he thinks, you're right. You're right. There's no one funnier than Chaplin. But then he starts with his vengeful stuff again because Ted Collins, who is Kate Smith's producer and manager, didn't want them on the show because Red Skelton was not free to do the show and they needed a replacement. And Eddie Sherman knew that Ted Collins owed him one. Let's go with the truth, folks. It was Henny Youngman. And Henry Youngman saw Abbott and Costello at the Roxy, where they were playing to a full 5,000-seat house. And he saw how hilarious they were, and he recommended them to Ted Collins, who signed them. And that was that.
Yep.
It's so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. So anyway, Lou is ruminating on the fact that he's not going to be on the radio. He thought he was going to be on the Kate Smith show. So that's why he's sitting there saying, oh, I'm funnier than these guys and da-da-da-da-da. And he gets the phone call from Eddie Sherman saying, you're going to be on the Kate Smith show. Now, here's the other apocryphal scene that just made me want to, I was going to say, I can't say this. Anyway, it wouldn't be respectful. They are signed for the Kate Smith show. They're sitting on two chairs. There's an empty microphone with a full house. Nobody's talking on the microphone. It's like they stopped tape on the live broadcast. I'm picturing all the people at home just scratching their heads and wondering what happened to Kate Smith. I mean, that's a big girl. She just doesn't disappear. Maybe her moon went over the mountain. Who knows? And Bud and Lou have time to, talk about the sketch that they're obviously seeing for the first time. Do you believe this? I can't believe this. This isn't funny. It's not funny. Let's do it. So they get up, they're introduced, they throw the script away, and they do Who's on First. Boy, it sounds like Hollywood magic. Unfortunately, they do the very worst version of Who's on First I have ever seen. And I'm talking about seeing 5-year-olds do it, paraplegics, people who can't speak, people who, jump out of airplanes and do it. Nobody has done a worse version of Who's on First than these two guys.
I will take issue with that, in that there is a version that is worse than what they did. It was when the two of them appeared on some promotional NBC program to promote this movie and in front of a live audience did Who's on First. It was worse then than it is in this movie.
I seem to recall that because that was one of the things I watched before the movie, before I didn't see the movie. And I did make note of the fact that how terrible it was, especially Buddy Hackett.
Oh,
Buddy Hackett should be ashamed of himself. He's a professional comedian. And at this point, a comedian for 25, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And he gives a performance like that. He allows that to go out. I just don't get it. And Sandy Hackett, he should have got an Emmy. And I'm looking at my watch. So anyway, any of these routines, it looks like two people off the street who were handed these scripts for the very first time. And they're cold reading them. That's what it looks like.
Yes.
So you're taking what Abbott and Costello did better than anyone and totally trashing it. Okay. So there we go. Hackett, when he's doing Who's on First especially, watch him. His body language. He keeps using his hands. His hands are out in front of him like nothing Lou ever did in his life. And he dips down. His whole body dips down with every line. Every line he says, he pushes out physically by dipping down. He looks like a bored lumberjack. In other words, it looks like he's passing a log. He does. It just looks like he's passing a log the whole time, and a different one for each line. There's really enough fertilizer in his pants to do a whole field of strawberries. Now, anytime you gave Buddy, and I'm saying Buddy because it's nothing like Lou, anytime you give Buddy Hackett a line, a funny line to do. Now there's that scene where they're out in the alley and they're all walking away from the theater, and this was after I think the Ted Collins meeting, and Lou turns to Eddie Sherman and says, "But radio, one of the funniest things I do is my scare take. I get scared, and people laugh at that." And he says, "If you could act scared, you can sound scared. Sound scared for me." And Lou's like, "What? Sound scared." And Buddy Hackett does the worst scare take I've seen, seriously, from people jumping out of airplanes, 5-year-olds, paraplegics, you name it. These are the worst, absolute worst. There's also a thing about Clark Gable when they arrive in Hollywood and he says, "Clark Gable, eat your heart out." What is he doing? Clark Gable, eat your heart out. What? What? I just speech therapy maybe. A remedial course in pronouncing words. So you've got that. All of a sudden, they get the job on the Kay Smith show. They're national stars all of a sudden. Lou says, "I'm a bad boy" about 20,000 times. Oy, that alone, I wanted to turn off the TV.
Yep.
And Korman adds nothing. He adds absolutely nothing. None of his professional know-how, none of his abilities as a great straight man, which he is, but he shows none of it here. None of it. No push, no drive, no Abbott, aggression. He's just nice Midwestern Harvey Korman. Anyway, it looks like a cold reading. It's just ridiculous. Everything is mechanical in this movie. Everything just seems mechanical. It's all by the numbers, and it's just ridiculous. Okay, then you have, and I'm not going to go into this guy's biography because I'm not getting paid enough. The guy who plays an amalgam of every producer they ever worked for at Universal, Alan Randall is the name they came up with, and that's played by Robert Reed, he of the Brady Bunch. Now, Robert Reed, fine actor. He really is a fine actor. In this movie, he plays the number one, again, a-hole of all time. It's a one-note performance. It's a cheesy performance in that it's the same level, right, Jerry? It's the same level every scene. Yeah. And when he's not up front, he's in the back doing it. He's looking, shaking his head. "Oh my God, I hate Abbott and Costello. I hate working with them. I hate Lou Costello." It's all over his face. It's all there. But it's a weird character because they got along with 2 out of 3 of their producers. They had a very good relationship with. Now I know they played cards backstage. I'm not going to make any excuses for Abbott and Costello. They were irresponsible. They were 2 very irresponsible people. They spent like there was no tomorrow, like it was never going to end. They made the modern day equivalent of about $12 million a year. A year. And when the IRS came after them, they didn't have any money. You know why? Because they were buying yachts, they were buying nightclubs, they were gambling away $20,000 a pot, backstage during the movies while they were filming the movies. They would bet on anything. They were ridiculous. Lou had his racehorses and he was always at the track. He would blow 5,000 on one bet, 10,000 on another. They were nuts, but they were also, my understanding, of it is the fact that they both came from poor.
Yeah.
They both were in the lower tier show business showcase for years in burlesque, and they were street guys. They were Jersey guys. And when you're handed $12 million and you're not used to having that kind of money, you tend to overdo it. Talk to some of these people that win the lottery. I have a friend whose parents won $3 million in the lottery back in the 80s. And in 2 years, it was gone. All gone. Mm-hmm. So it happens. Yeah, it happens. But they did not keep an eye on their accountants. They were too busy, spending their money. So actually, I'm split on, the IRS thing. I feel terrible that they gave so much. Lou practically gave his life to sell war bonds, and they sold more than anybody.
Yeah.
And then to have the government turn on them like that, and I mean make examples out of them, public examples, it was just horrifying. It's a horrifying thing. And Bud got it worse than Lou. Oh boy, Bud really got hit. Now I'm watching the movie, and remember the scene in the Navy, the hammock scene, Jer?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
Oh my God. But I do one take. You get that? No, no, something happened with the camera. We have to do. No, that's it. I'm leaving. Lou, in their third movie,
Yeah.
he's already like that? No,
Mm.
no. He was still eager. He was ambitious. He was loving it. No, sorry. What this movie reminded me of, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Jerry. You probably, if I know you, you probably are. Second City, SCTV, by the way,
Hmm.
rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara, the
Yes.
funniest woman of my generation, a
Yes.
genius, a comic genius. That was a tough one. But anyway, SCTV, Bobby Bittman. He shows up on he shows up on the Sammy Maudlin show, and he's got a new movie called On the Waterfront Again. And it stars him and Lola Heatherton, who was, Catherine O'Hara, Lola
Yeah.
Heatherton. And, and the acting is so horrible. It's so overdone. It's so ridiculous. It reminds me of this movie.
Mm.
This is what the acting was like in this movie. It was like
Yep.
On the Waterfront Again. But anyway, then we go into immediately the little Butch thing. They're the two biggest stars in America, blah, blah, blah. They both have mansions. Unfortunately, they both have swimming pools. And I have to say that no matter where I get this information from, whether it's the horrible book or it's the horrible movie, or just in general in my own time, my own research, I can't go through that stuff without crying.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I know I sound like a big sissy, but I tear up whenever I
Hmm.
read about this, about little Butch and what happened. And when the scene comes where you see them by the pool and you see the playpen right by the pool,
Yep.
and you just think to yourself, why? Why was it so close to the pool? Why?
Hmm.
Who thought of this? Who
Hmm.
did this? Now, there's still, speculation. Was it the nurse? Was it Anne? Unfortunately, it was on Anne's watch. And some people say she just got up for a moment to go do something. Some people say that she wasn't there at all, that this was all the nanny. It happened while she was away. I don't know what the situation was, but it doesn't matter. A baby died, and the baby was the most important thing in Lou's life. And not to mention his wife, which we
Yeah.
often forget, right? Who
Yeah.
suffered just as much. So we see in the movie that she did become an alcoholic due to the pain that she had to suffer. And Lou didn't help. This is the part of the movie that I think they got right. I'm really torn about this because I know it would never be the same. Let's face it, it would never be the same. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, this is a woman who absolutely adored her husband above all else. She was the poster girl for the devoted wife. And you look at Lou, here's this little fat guy, and he's married to this really, really attractive woman who absolutely adores him.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I just find that interesting. But more interesting than that is I don't know if I were in Lou's place, I don't know if I would act any differently. I hate to
Mm.
say it, but this is his son. And it was a freak accident
Yeah.
based on negligence.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I don't know if I would feel the same. And I know that his mom, Lou's mom, felt the same. There was tension after that. Why weren't you there with the baby? Why weren't you watching? You know? And I hate to say this, and Chris, if you're listening to this, I just want you to know that my heart goes out to both of your parents and to you and your sister for what you had to go through. Nobody should have to go through that. So this was a big part of the movie. If Lou wasn't such a jerk already, cutting Bud out 60-40, he didn't forget what Bud did to him way back when. Basically, this was not based on vengeance. It was based on work. Lou worked more than Bud. Lou
Hmm.
was on the schedule much more than Bud. Lou worked harder than Bud. Lou would go home sweating and feeling pain, and he had a bad heart. And again, we always joke about it, but I'm going to make a phone call and eat a sandwich. You do a routine for 10 minutes and I'll be back. Sorry. I'm torn. Maybe it should have been 50-50. And this was just for the movies, by the way.
Yeah.
But then again, if you look at it, Stan Laurel made more money than Oliver Hardy.
Hmm.
because he did more work. So why doesn't that apply to Abbott and Costello? Why do people look down on Lou for that? He was demanding what he deserved.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by that to the day I die. So anyway, here's the I'm kidding. I'm not really dead. I'm just tired. That was scary, yeah. Oh, Jerry, you look scared. All right, so you have nice moments between Bud and Lou when Lou is sick and Bud comes to visit him and he promises him his car if he gets well. I think that really happened. I do think that really happened. And of course, Lou accepts it, openly.
Yeah.
This is something that hit me hard in the movie. The day that Butch dies, the day that he leaves for the radio studio and he tells Ann to keep the baby up, maybe he'll recognize my voice, and he kisses the baby and he turns and he kisses Ann. My thought was the whole time, as my eyes are filling up, I'm thinking everything changed right after that kiss. That was the last kiss that probably felt completely good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything changed. Everything. His attitude, they lost their baby, their relationship, everything changed. Maxine Andrews of the Andrews Sisters writes about it in her book. And she says that Lou changed. He just became quicker to anger. He would get very solemn and quiet, where he used to be, a little bit more playful. But it really does explain Bobby Barber, doesn't it? He needed a jester. He needed someone to keep it up. He was the clown. He was the one who had to get the laughs. So yeah, of course. And who better than Bobby Barber to do that job? So that all makes sense. After that, everything just goes to hell. The IRS gets involved. There's that horrible scene where the IRS is in the Costello living room, because obviously Abbott didn't have a home or a wife or children or anything else. He had epilepsy. That's about it. He was married to his epilepsy. And it was a perfect fit. Get it? That was terrible. I'm going to get struck down for that. All right, I'm not going to do the same gag twice. Okay. Since when, Nick?
Yeah, exactly.
No, please. Okay. So here we go. First of all, I want to go back to Buddy Hackett's best scene in the movie. I'm going to say that this is the one scene that touched me. And that's after Butch dies and Lou is in bed with Ann. And in the middle of the night, he wakes up with a start. He has a bad dream. And he gets out of bed and he goes into Butch's nursery. I'm already choking up. I'm sorry. He goes into Butch's nursery and he looks at the toys and he gets the little boxing gloves that he got for him, the little baby boxing gloves. And he sits down in the little chair and puts the gloves to his cheeks and he cries and cries and cries. It's something. It really is something. I got to hand it to him. I mean, if he kept his performance on this level throughout the entire film, I'd say yes, Emmy. He deserves an Emmy.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And this is the one scene where I say that, boy, oh boy, he is just terrific. Do you remember that, Jared?
Oh, yes. Yes. And exactly the same attitude I had. It was, just rip your heart out emotion. It was incredible. Yes. And and if half the rest of the film had that same level, it would have been so much better.
I totally agree. Because, he wasn't a bad actor.
No.
He was just bad in this movie. And you know what? I'm leaving out something that Sandy Hackett told me that is probably the most important thing to remember. This was a rush job. He told me this was a rush job. That's why they never learned the routines. They didn't have time. They didn't have time to create a chemistry because they rushed the movie. And it looks rushed. The movie looks rushed. And it looks cheap. So they obviously saved money. It was like, who made this? Universal? So then after the IRS thing, Eddie Sherman has a meeting with Alan Randall, the big producer, who says, let's face it, we're not going to renew them because their last 4 pictures lost money. No, their last 4 pictures made money. And Universal wanted to sign them to a new contract, but they wouldn't give them the money they wanted, and they said no and walked out. So there you go. Another way to disparage the team. This is fun, isn't it? Uh, then we cut to the Las Vegas scene where Bud gets drunk and can't respond to Lou, and he's falling over himself. And we know from the previous podcast, it was either that one or the one before, I explained that there are two recollections of this story of Bud getting drunk during their Las Vegas show, which was the last show they did together.
Yeah.
Eddie Sherman's version is that Bud got blind drunk and couldn't work, and Lou just lost it and said, I'll never work with him again. Stan Irwin, who was in charge of entertainment and was there all through rehearsal and all through opening night, said that didn't happen. He said that Bud was 9 years older than Lou and looked it. He was not fast enough. Lou was keeping up the pace, and Bud, who was supposed to keep up the pace, couldn't anymore. He slurred his lines, and that he was doing that in the last movies. He just wasn't up to it anymore. He was not the Bud Abbott of old, and he was a sick man. He was not well, and he pushing 60. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Lou was still full of energy and still wanted to accomplish things, and this told him, time to go our separate ways. We've done everything we could possibly do. We've been everywhere in the movies. We've done radio and television. We've done Broadway. We've done everything we could possibly do. And he split up the act. And Bud just said, well, if that's the way you want it, that's the way it'll be. He didn't want to split up. The gravy train was needed at this point because he had no money. He was totally destitute. And he did not have any prospects as well. The straight man was never thought of as well as the comedian. The comedian was the star of the show. And Lou proved several times that he could carry stuff on his own. Bud could have been a character actor, could have been a supporting player, in movies or television at that point. He was that good.
Yeah.
But I just think he aged more quickly than he wanted to. And he still was a very sick man. And he also said that the more he works, the more the IRS takes. So why should I work? He doesn't see it. He sold everything. He sold his house in the valley. He sold his ranch. He sold all of his livestock. He sold his wife's jewelry. He sold everything, his rights to the Universal movies. I mean, he had to get rid of everything. The real estate that he sold, he took a loss on because he had to sell it right away.
Yeah.
So this poor guy, and I mean that literally, this poor guy. Anyway, I want to go to the last scene of the film, which I know that, there's one more scene that I have to bring up. And
Okay.
That's when the IRS guy is talking to them in Lou's house, right? And Lou, of course, is making one wisecrack after another. And Bud is telling him, I have to spend a lot of money on my clothing. I'm in show business. I'm a straight man. I have to look good. Anyway, this guy is, telling them, no, you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. And then Anne walks in. Of course, she has a drink in her hand, and she sits down, and she just said, can I ask a question? And Lou screams at her in front of both guys. No, Anne, you can't. Just shut up. That kind of intensity. And I'm thinking, boy, that's a subtle way to show how their marriage is slipping somewhat. Everything is just so ham-fisted.
Yeah.
It's like we're being served with a sledgehammer. Kong and Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. I'll split it with all of you. Yeah, right. If we live. So they split up. Lou is doing a show in Vegas, the Minsky Follies. The way they depict it, it's a bottom of the barrel show with strippers and nudity and all this stuff. And Lou is keeping clean, but still doing the same bits, Crazy House and, whatever, with other people, with Sid Fields, actually. And supposedly it's not doing well. And the critics are saying Lou's dogging it, meaning that he's holding back. Lou was sick. Lou is pretty much dying at this point, and it's just a slow descent into death. His heart is just giving out. It's classic, heart disease, his rheumatic fever. And he's laying on a massage table, and Eddie Sherman comes in and says, Lou, this might be too much for you. This is a lot, and you're not healthy, and da 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 da. What if we brought back Bud? And we made this like a reunion thing and blah, blah, blah. And then people would come and he says, that's not a bad idea. I'll give him 500 a week. Now, Lou was probably making 15,000 a week, and he's doing this Ted Healy math. But Eddie Sherman just looked at him incredulous. And this really happened. He said, no, I can't do that to Bud. That's an insult. And Lou, who didn't mean it, to be honest with you, he knew it would be no. He said, well, good. In that case, I'll just finish up the act. He didn't want to go back. He didn't want to go backwards.
Yeah.
But anyway, apparently he never made an appearance on the General Electric Theater. He was never on Wagon Train. He never made the 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock. He never appeared on the Steve Allen Show. He never did any of those things. He just did a bomb show in Las Vegas. Why, Jerry? Because it was convenient for the writers. So the next scene is the most famous scene in the movie and the most widely quoted, and it's always quoted wrong. And I'm going to correct that today. Gilbert Gottfried used to love to quote the final line, but he never did it correctly. Sorry, Gilbert. But anyway, he did it constantly. It was ridiculous. But here it is. Lou is in the hospital. He had a heart attack. And Eddie Sherman is sitting with him. And Lou is talking about, I really want to go back to work and this and that. I'm la, la, la. And then they start talking about Abbott and Abbott's problems. Oh, how's Abbott doing? Oh, no, he's fine. No, I saw him on the news, the 6 o'clock news. They didn't call it the 6 o'clock news in 1959. But anyway, he says, I saw Abbott, and he asked people for money. He begged for 50 cents for people. Blah, blah. And that's not right, Eddie. That's not right. And I'm thinking, okay, let's drop it now. You're dying. And no, he goes on. We got to get him, Eddie. We got to get him. Like a mafia don. Right up to the end. Right up to the end. Lou Costello was an a-hole. Right in his deathbed. A horrible, horrible person. A horrible human being. Anyway, here's the thing. He tells Eddie, I really want some ice cream. I'd love some strawberry ice cream. And of course, Eddie has a bag with him. And it's not, his wife. I knew you were going to want it, Louie. I knew it because the writers did. And so Lou opens it up and it's malted, a strawberry malted. And he's talking to Eddie. Everything's upbeat. He's so excited. He's drinking the malted. And he says, I had a lot of strawberry malteds in my life. You know that? But of all of them I ever had, boy, Eddie, this one's the best. Ugh. And he dies. That's the exact quote from the movie. Yep. Now let's step into reality land, shall we? Everyone put on your reality shoes.
Why start now?
You're absolutely right. You know why? Because Eddie Sherman wasn't in the room when Lou died. He was not there. You know who was there? His nurse. And you know what Lou said? He didn't have a malted. He didn't have a strawberry shake. He didn't have strawberry ice cream. He said, can you adjust my pillow so I could be more comfortable? And when she did, he died. And that was it. But no, that wasn't sensational enough. It didn't make him look bad enough, And the obvious reason for this movie being in existence, and I mean the book as well, was to denigrate a comic genius. And there you go. So there it is. That's the movie. And I have to say, when they go to Bud's house to tell him about Lou, again, Chris Costello will tell you that, oh, yeah, they saw each other. They were friends. And, after the breakup and da-da-da, they never saw each other again. They never did. Bud didn't even know Lou was sick. What I loved is when Bud is sitting on his crappy couch in his crappy house. And when he's told what's happening, he starts thinking. You see the camera come up to his, his forehead. And he starts thinking. And what does he picture? He pictures the worst version of Who's on First I've ever seen. That's how he remembers his late partner. And then he's seeing little scenes, from the movie we just kind of saw. And it's almost like the regurgitation after you digested this movie. It was a way of throwing it all back up and just cleansing yourself from this horrible, horrible, filthy, garbage that they call a movie and a book. So there you go, kids. I give the book maybe 4 out of 5 stars, and the movie 5 stars, 5 shiny stars. Okay, wait a minute. Did I just say that? Wait, let me look at my notes. No, I'm sorry. No stars for the book and no stars for the movie. In fact, if I could go negative, I would do that. And if I had to pair it up on a double feature, I would say the movie Melania would be the perfect movie. And maybe the more recent version of Snow White from Disney.
Oh,
Which made me want to rip out my own esophagus. That's how bad it was. All right. Hell of a way to lose weight, you know? So here we are. That's it. Episode 45 is in the can, right?
yes.
And the movie belongs in the can.
Yes.
And I don't mean, and when I say can, I mean bathroom. It should be flushed down and never heard from again. And folks, if you've never seen it, my listeners, or our listeners, I should say, if you've never heard it or seen it or read it, avoid it. I think I've pretty much covered what you need to know about this trash. And if you've read it already, you know what we're talking about. So there you go. It's a public service, my friends. So Jerry, wrap it up for me. What's your basic views on this whole phenomenon of denigrating and trashing these two great comedians?
I think the first thing that pops into my mind is ditto.
Okay, my favorite Marx Brother.
Yeah, exactly. Who just repeated everything everybody else said. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, it is an abomination. It truly is. It was only made to make a buck. It was only made to exploit. There was, even at the time, I would not have considered myself a scholar in the world of Abbott and Costello back in the late 70s.
Right.
But even then, I knew, that's not right. This is not truthful.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's that bad. Nobody is that bad or that stupid.
Yes.
He was made out to be stupid, like mentally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes for both of them, really. I mean, Abbott was more of a subtle character, but Lou, it was like he was mentally challenged.
Yeah.
What was the deal? He wasn't. He was actually a pretty charming little guy, a funny little guy. And he was lovable. He could be lovable. He could be crazy. He could be aggressive, but that was mostly with people he felt were taking advantage of him.
Oh, yeah.
Just as you and I would be. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. This is it's ridiculous.
And also, of everything that you have said on this particular episode, the one thing I agree with more than anything else, listener, if you have never read the book and never seen the movie, keep it that way.
Yes, you'll be better off. You will be better off. That's great advice, Jerry. Great advice. So that's it. We've done our public service, and now, actually, for me, it was whatchamacallit. It was part of the court's decision that I had to do this. This was my what is it called when you have to do work instead of go to jail?
Community service.
That's it. This is my community service because I stole a joke from Debbie Reynolds, and I've been ostracized by the entire community. They just can't get over it. So this was my community service.
Okay.
And I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time, as good a time as we did, denigrating this crappy movie and book. And listen, I just want to say, number one, I'm not getting the subscription action that I want. And I'm sorry to say this, but we've got thousands of listeners. We have well over 1,000 listeners, and 500 are subscribers, and some of them are not even from this podcast. It's my own page, the Nick Santa Maria page. Go on there, just go on there and subscribe, please. If you're listening, if you enjoy us, if you enjoy the podcast, and I know a lot of you are, you've been telling me all week, which is wonderful. My friend Paul Castiglia, who was on with Hold That Ghost episode,
Oh yeah,
he just went off. He was like, "Thank you for this. Thank you so much." In fact, several people have written to me, and they all say the same thing, Jerry. You guys are doing, it's like we're doing God's work, We're bringing these guys where they belong, where they should be, right up with the others. So anyway, please, folks, subscribe, okay? I really, really need that. And if you didn't press like, And if you didn't like it, do it anyway. Okay, Jerry, I want you to have a wonderful time. Try to stay warm. What's the temperature there?
you as well. My goodness, here it's not bad. I mean, currently I think we're like low 40s, 41, 42 right now.
Yeah, we are. I think we're 47 right now, but I woke up to 29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here in Spokane, Washington, low 40s in the 1st of February is what it's supposed to be. I'm sorry. Nowhere in Florida should people be waking up to 29 degrees.
I got news for you. I was happy, and I waited till it got up to 31, and then I went out on my 6-mile walk. Folks, I do a 6-mile walk every single day. That's why I'm in Peru, Indiana right now. But and it's Peru. No, but I do a walk every morning, and I couldn't wait to get out there. So I had my heavy jacket on, and I had my hat, and all that stuff. I like winter. Winter should be cold. All right. And I'm alone in that, believe me. I was the only person outside today. It was hilarious. All right, kids. You all have a wonderful, wonderful couple of weeks before we see you again, or hear you again, or sense you again, or whatever. I'm floundering here, Jerry. Help me.
I would like to say that to everybody who hits subscribe and like, we'll give you strawberry ice cream.
Even a malted.
I would like to say that, but I really can't. So.
Okay, so no ice cream for anybody. But
No.
Please hit that subscribe button. Okay, please, for us. All right, that's it. We did it. This is one I really was looking forward to this one, by the way, because a lot of people have asked for it. Believe it or not, a lot of people. These are the same people that go to bondage places and S&M. They love being beaten and spit upon, and they're the ones who requested this. And let's face it, S&M stands for Santa Maria, so that's all good. So yeah, clean that up pretty well. All right, everybody, take care. Lots of love, and please watch Abbott and Costello as much as you possibly can. Not sure what the next episode's going to be. I'll think on it and let you know. You guys take care. Jerry, all the best to you, pal.
And to you as well.
Thank you. Take care.